Subscribe. Subscribe.
Welcome to Real Rockford Files, for tales of the paranormal, supernatural, and the flat-out unbelievable. Today I'm going to be sharing shadow people stories. Let's get into it. Story 1. When I was 12 years old, we lived in this old-fashioned house in Long Beach, California. I am 22 years old now. I never believed in ghosts or spirits until my encounter living at this house. It was a 3-bedroom house. I shared my room with my baby sister and my brother, and my parents had their own rooms. Every night when everyone went to sleep, they would close their doors, except for my room. I don't know why, I just didn't like my door closed. We had an extremely long, dark hallway. There would be some nights where I would stay up to watch Disney Channel while everyone in the house was asleep. One night, when I was the only one awake, I was watching my show as usual, when I saw a tall male figure in the corner of my eye peek into my room, and when I turned to look, he would back up and hide. For some reason, I didn't feel really bothered by it, so I just kept watching TV, and once again I could see him peek in and out of my room, and every time I would look, he would disappear. Eventually, I got so tired I just fell asleep because it was late. On this one evening, I was in the kitchen making eggs, and from my kitchen, you can see the hallway because it was like an open kitchen bar, where you can see out into the living room. Well, while I was making my eggs, in the corner of my eye, I saw the tall shadow man again, just peeking, and I couldn't really see his face, but every time I would turn to look, he would disappear. But he would always reappear every time I would not look at his direction. It was so weird and creepy, but I didn't feel afraid. Finally, one night, when everyone was asleep except for my brother, because he had his girlfriend over, so their door was cracked open and their light shined into my room. Well, I was asleep for some reason. Something woke me up, and when I opened my eyes, there was a clear view of a man standing in my room, staring into the hallway. He didn't look at me. He looked like he was hiding from someone. He seemed worried and scared. I was so shocked I couldn't move. I was seriously on stuck mode. Eventually, I snapped out of it and turned my lamp on, and when I did, he turned and looked at me and slowly vanished. I was so spooked I slept with my lamp on. We eventually moved out of that house, but I'll never forget his face and all the times he would stand in the hallway corners. Story 2. It's been a while since I shared anything, since I only had one experience whilst I was a child. So the spirit slash demon slash creature thing that I deemed the Shadow Man has come back into my life. And before I say what has started happening, I'll explain a bit about what happened when I was a kid. Basically, when I was younger, I had a spirit stalk me wherever I went. I always felt like I was being followed. Whenever I went outside when it was getting dark, I would always see it out of the window, but whenever I saw it, it would run away. I believe that it increased my anger issue when I was a kid. To put it simply, when I was younger, I had anger issues that were never really tied to anything. I had a very short temper, but I don't remember doing as much as people said I did. Throwing things at people's heads, trying to hit people with metal bats, etc. Since I can remember, I had anger issues, and since I can remember, I saw the Shadow Man following me. And after a certain point, I stopped seeing him, and my anger issues subsided, sometime around the end of elementary school. Anyhow, now I believe it is back. About a month or so ago, I felt extremely uncomfortable. I was at work around 8, and it was dark outside. I work at a fast food joint and don't usually have the later shifts, and it felt like something was watching me from outside the dining room windows. The dining room walls are pretty much all windows, and I kept feeling the need to look out the windows and look into the darkness of night. And for the second time in my life, I was extremely uncomfortable in going out into the darkness because I knew it was out there, although I had to suck it up and throw out the garbage. At the time, I just ignored it and thought I was just paranoid for no reason. But 2 weeks ago, while I was in the morning shift, before the store even opened, I saw a black figure walking around in the dining room. By the time I went to check it out, the Shadow Man was gone. The reason I knew it was him, because I got a better look at him than I usually did. After that, I started getting scared. Now I thought, hey, maybe it's just a mistake. Maybe it was just my imagination. Now I just learned that last night my mom woke up to a black figure. The way she described it matches the exact same thing I saw. Standing near her bed and looking down at her when she woke up, it disappeared. Now back when I was a kid, it caused me anger issues, from what I believe, and now as of late I've been feeling even more annoyed, angry, bitter, and hateful. Now at the moment I'm trying to tell myself that it is all in my head, but I was wondering what anyone else thought, and is there a way for me to get it out of my life? I am honestly scared to lose what's left of who I am. I already hate most people. I didn't when I was younger. There are times I don't feel emotions, and to be honest, I don't value human life at all. I'm not a psychopath, I just don't care about people at all, and don't feel anything when people die around me. I still try to be nice, and still try to care for people, but I've always felt like there was a part of me missing, maybe a part of my soul. So what do you guys think? Anything will help. Story 3. I want to share my experience with what I'll call the Black Shadow Man for now. 2 days ago, my parents went to their friend's house together, and I had to look after my little brother for the evening. I had my boyfriend staying over because the house always has that kind of eerie feeling. We just watched a DVD, and my brother was peacefully sleeping in his room on the second floor. Suddenly he screamed, so we quickly ran upstairs. He was sitting there in his bed shaking and pointing towards one corner of the room. When I asked him what the hell is wrong, he said, "That black man there," and he bolted out of the room. However, when I turned the lights on, there was absolutely nothing. My boyfriend just laughed it off and told me that I shouldn't believe him because he's just a kid having nightmares. I don't know, but I believe my little brother. He later begged me to unhang a shirt from his wall. It's a team shirt from his favorite player. He said because the black man doesn't want me to have it. I almost laughed a bit, but then I remembered how much my brother loves this shirt, that he never lets anyone ever touch it, so he was indeed very scared. Anyways, when I told my mom about it the next day, she was startled. When I asked her what happened, she told me that I had the same visions as a toddler. I don't remember it though. She told me that I would often cry for her in the middle of the night and point to one corner of the room. I could barely speak back then, but I used to talk about a man, a black tall man. She also explained that a few weeks ago, my brother claimed to have seen a black man in our kitchen. Well, I thought it has to be the house, but then I remembered that we lived in a different house back in Salmon Arm, BC, back then, when I was having those visions. Now, we live in a different house on an island, which is nowhere really near there. So it wasn't the house or the place. Does that mean it has to be us? It's scary to even think about that possibility. Is it just coincidence that me and my brother both experienced the same thing without knowing about the others? Do you think it has to do with us because it happened in both houses? Story 4. Around 3 years back, my family used to own a new 4-bedroom villa in the suburbs. My dad was working in another country, and so only my mom, my sister, and I used to live in that house. I used to visit during the weekends or holidays since I was doing my master's in a different city. While I was home, we three used to sleep in the master bedroom downstairs, mainly because my mom was paranoid about burglars and sought strength in numbers. I have had several experiences in that house, but I used to push it off as recesses of my consciousness and explain it away as my eyes playing tricks on me. The incident I am going to narrate is very significant to me since it proved to me beyond a doubt that these incidents were not a figment of my imagination. This is one of the first incidents that happened since we moved in. There is a saying in India that you should lie with your head facing east or north, but never towards the south. When I used to come home, my mom used to place another bed alongside the king-size bed so that we all can sleep parallel to each other. In order for the beds to fit, we had to place the beds in such a way that when we lay down, we used to have our head to the south. I do not know how much logic and reason there is behind the saying, and all I know is that your body's energy in karmic chakra is affected by the magnetic pull of the energy of Earth while it orbits the sun, and the balance of positive and negative energy is affected. Vague, I know. So back to the story. Whenever I used to come home and retire for the night in this position, I used to have this unexplained fear, true blood-running cold fear, that suddenly takes over my thoughts in the middle of the night. There used to be no particular reason to trigger the fear. Sometimes I'll be sleeping peacefully when I wake up with a start, drenched in cold sweat, heart beating fast and shivering like a cornered animal. I used to get the distinct feeling that someone was watching me from the foot of the bed. I never saw anything then, just felt it. This became an everyday occurrence. I was afraid to sleep near the end of the bed. My mom tried everything, but nothing made that night terror go away. One night I slept in the middle, with my mom and sister on either side. That night I slept soundly. Next morning my mom made us shift around the furniture in the room so that somehow we managed to have the huge beds placed in the right way, with our head facing east. After that I did not experience anything. To this day I still do not know whether placing your head in a particular way while you sleep affects us in any way or not. The day I was going back to my dorm, my mom revealed something to me about her hasty decision to move the bed's position, which still gives me chills when I think about it. The night before the shift, my mom was sleeping where I generally slept, and she too woke up in the middle of the night with a strange feeling. She shrugged it off and decided to go to the bathroom, which was attached to the bedroom, right across where she was sleeping, about 3 feet away in fact. There was a cupboard a few inches away from the bathroom door, and this created a slight gap big enough for a child to sit in. The room was flooded with light coming through the window from the street light outside. In this light my mom saw a dark shadow resembling a person, a man, sitting in that corner between the cupboard and the door. It had its head on its knees in a weird posture, and as my mom looked on, it lifted its head and slowly stood up and glided up the wall and vanished. My mom was totally shook up, but she went over and turned the bathroom light on. She saw nothing in the corner that could explain away the sighting. There was no vehicle that passed by on the road either, for its lights to create shadows on the wall. Now my mom is a very practical person, and she would never say something like this as a joke, or unless she really truly believes what she saw. This cleared all my suspicions. After this incident, we had a priest come over and do a cleansing ritual. We call it puja in our home, and we didn't have that particular event again for a while. Story 5. I've always lived in Oklahoma. We have lived in the same house for 20 years. My dad had previously had the house built during his first marriage, and then later moved back a year after I was born. My dad and his family have always lived in this area. My grandparents used to live in the same house where my uncle is now. Another uncle used to live behind our house. Also, another to the left of our house. There was an old 2-story house that sat next to the grandparents' house they lived in at one point. We came from a large family of Choctaw Indians. My grandparents had 8 children, my dad being the oldest. My dad and his brothers have always told us kids about this ghost bear that has been seen in the area and in the nearest town. One of my uncles once saw it face to face. He was making him a snack in the kitchen when he looked up and the face of a bear was pressed up against the window looking right at him. My dad always told us that this bear was white and that it could stand and walk on 2 legs. One night all of them were outside and they saw it standing up in the back of my grandpa's work truck. I only know of 2 other times where this thing has been noticed, one being just down the road from me and another in the town where I went to school. The one that happened down the road from me was a little girl who was playing hide and seek with her brothers. She went around a barn and ran right into the creature. The one in the next town happened in the late 90s and early 20s. There was a house that stood in the town where people claimed a light came on in the living room every night when the house had not had any electricity for years. A group of teens went up to this house, and this thing had chased one of the boys all the way down the large hill that this house sat on. There were the last known sightings of this. My second story happened to me personally in the same house that was mentioned above. The room that I was in at the time was previously the garage. I had been sleeping in this room for a couple of years before I started to see things. I shared a room with one of my sisters. We both had the same encounter the first time. We both saw this black mist coming from the attic entrance and form into a black shadow figure. This figure stands about 6 feet tall. We kept seeing this shadow man every night. One night my sister had fell asleep before me, and I was lying in bed, and all of a sudden I feel my feet slowly rise up and then slam onto the bed. I tried to roll over and I couldn't. When I was trying to move, I felt a hand on the middle of my back and whispered my name. After that, my parents switched rooms with us, and we didn't see anything for another few years. When I became pregnant at 17, it started all over again. I was about 3 to 4 months pregnant. I was asleep in bed and was awakened by something. I couldn't move. The only thing I was able to move was my eyes. I'm not 100% sure if this was the Shadow Man or if it was some Native American tribes believed to be an out-of-body experience. The third happened only a few months ago. I was sitting in the living room watching TV when I looked down the hallway and I saw a woman dressed in early 1800s style of clothing. I watched this lady walk into the hallway and back into the hall towards where my room is now. I told my mom and aunt about this and described what the woman looked like. They showed me a picture a couple of days later of my great-great-grandmother, and it was then that I realized that is who I saw. I still see the shadow man walking around my house from time to time, and in the past couple of days I've been noticing what looks like white lace walking on our front porch. I don't know if it's because of my heritage that I can see these things, or if it's because they trust me enough to show them to me, but it's disturbing. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Hope you enjoyed.